Hi, this is your sewing Sherpa Shauna from Needles and Knots here in Tucson, Arizona, and I am about to introduce a new service called Basic Block Service. Oh no, wake up, wake up. It's really cool. Anyhow, a lot of people out there are super interested in designing their own clothes, right? You've been sewing for a while, you've done a few commercial patterns, and you'll notice that the only thing that ever works out for you are those big tenty dresses, or those big oversized shirts, or, the knit leggings, because everything else, it works out, but it doesn't fit quite right, right? Plus, it doesn't have just what you're after. It's like close, but not quite, right? So you want to make your own stuff. And a lot of people are coming to me like, I want to make my own things. Can you teach classes on how to, be your own designer, how to design your own clothes? And I'm like, yeah, I could do that, but it would require that you have a full set of basic blocks. And a lot of people are like, well, what's a basic block? I don't know what a basic block is. And then I start telling them, and then they fall asleep. So basic blocks are like these fitted garments basic blocks are the patterns that we cut material out of that make these fitted garments in a really ugly way. I mean, they could make a supermodel look dumpy, but they fit you in a certain way so that you can take those and create style from them. And when I went to college, we spent the first 2 years creating our full suite of basic blocks for the dress form in the design room that we were assigned to. So my basic blocks don't really actually work for anything but that dress form. But I did learn a lot. But it did take 2 years and $30,000 worth of tuition to, get that information across. When you come to me, you're looking for, a class, and then you have your blocks, right? That's not how it works. And my series of classes that I developed to create basic blocks spanned a couple of months, and it was full day sessions, a few weeks of the month, and anyways. I was excited. I'm like, you got to start somewhere. This is where we start, basic blocks. One of my favorite students comes in and she's like, Shauna, I'm ready to start designing my own clothes. And I was like, great, I'm starting a series of basic block classes. And she's like, oh, I'm signing up for every one of those. And she's like, I've made 3 sets of basic blocks for myself over the last couple of decades. I'm like, dun, dun, dun. So she knows what a basic block is. She's been working on it a couple of decades, 3 different gurus. Um, and she was like, ready to go down and do that again. And she's like, but is there any way that we could start with the fun stuff instead of the basic blocks? And I was like, I totally hear you. Making basic blocks is not fun, but it takes enough time and energy that by the time you're done, you're like, I don't want to make any patterns. I just want to, buy clothes from Target. So I took her request to heart, and I've spent the last 2 months creating a service called the Basic Block Service, where I make the blocks for you. And it takes about 24 hours, which is 3 full days of work. And so if you're coming in from out of town, I could set aside 3 days and make it happen inside that 3 days. It may be a little less, but I have to give myself at least 24 hours. Or if you're in town, we could spread it out over a few weeks, but you basically come in and I take a full set of measurements, and there's about 40 of them, and you need to be wearing a form-fitting garment like leggings and a t-shirt or a unitard or something, not Spanx or anything like that, because that changes your shape. You just, something form-fitting. And then I go back into my back room, I do my magic. You come in for a second fitting, or first fitting. I'll cut and sew the muslin. Muslins are basically a garment made from a pattern, and it may or may not be made out of actual muslin. It's just a term. Maybe made out of knit if it's a knit block, right? But I'll have you try on your muslins, and I'll critique them and see if I need to make any changes. If I do, I send you home or back to your hotel, and I go ahead and make the changes back here, and then I have you come in for maybe another fitting, depending on what the changes were like, or you come back in and you pick up your suite of slopers. And the suite of slopers will get you into the actual pattern making classes where you use these slopers to create style. You use these slopers that fit you and only you or your customer if you've decided to go with some more of a generic middle ground. And we start learning pattern making and designing from the fun end using your custom slopers and work back to understanding what the slopers are instead of starting with like this idea of what a sloper is and drafting it on a piece of paper. So, there are a lot of different ways to come about slopers. I mean, I've seen patterns from Vogue and stuff where you start with theirs and then you do multiple fittings on and off and transfer that information back into paper and stuff. And, eventually that will work. It has. It's worked for a lot of people over time, but we're talking eventually. Again, it's going to be years because you can't pin on yourself. You can't see yourself from behind. You can't do, and then there's a lot of basics, like little fundamentals in pattern making that you may not be aware of, that you are violating with some of your, like DIY ways of making these slopers. And that's going to get built into every pattern you make from then on. You will learn and you will eventually get it. And if you want to do it that way, do it. Do it. But if you want to skip the torture, come on in and get your suite of basic blocks or slopers and muslins made by yours truly and move on into the fun stuff right away. I'm excited. This is going to work out, and I look forward to setting you up with your own set of slopers.